Hi, my name is Jack McLean and I'm the founder of PREPARELikeapro. Growing up, I loved playing cricket and football and had a strong passion for helping others. Over the past 11 years working in the industry, I've been lucky enough to have worked alongside Sean Murphy, the head strength and conditioning coach at Essendon, Luke Boyd, physical performance manager at Hawthorn, and interned under Andrew Russell, high performance director at Carlton. I started PREPARELikeapro after my time as a strength and conditioning coach at Hawthorn Football Club to help developing footballers gain a competitive edge with AFL standard preparation methods. If you're a developing footballer wanting to take your game to the next level, we'd love to help you. At PREPARELikeapro, you can expect to not only improve your athleticism, but also lower your risk of injury or overload. There are training programs suitable for every level of involvement. I would love to help you choose the one that best suits your goals and personal motivation. Head to our Inquire Now page and I'll get back to you soon. Welcome to PREPARELikeapro Live Chats. Thanks for tuning in. Tonight on the show we have Jarrod Egan, the Head of Athletic Performance and Development Director of Athletics at Sydney Grammar School. Prior to working at Sydney Grammar School, Jarrod worked at Port Adelaide as a Senior Assistant Fitness Coach, and he worked at the Adelaide Crows as a Strength and Conditioning Coach. He's an experienced business owner and sports performance coach, skilled in sports science, athletic training, biomechanics, strength and conditioning, and sports rehabilitation. Has a strong professional, graduated from the University of Ballarat with an honours in biomechanics. Really looking forward to this chat. Like always, guys, if you have questions, feel free to send them through via the chat box, and we'll spend some time for a Q&A later on in the chat. Before we start this episode, for those that are new to the podcast, our mission here is to empower aspiring athletes and staff with practical knowledge from some of the industry's most inspiring individuals and to strengthen the AFL community. If you like the show, please show your support by following us on Instagram and subscribing to the podcast. We're on iTunes, Spotify, and YouTube. Welcome, Jarrod. Thanks for jumping on, mate.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks for having me.
We'll dive right back into the beginning of your career, mate.
Yep.
At what age did you discover you had a passion for strength and conditioning?
Yeah, good question. I think it was when I was I always loved sport, and when I finished school, I wanted to do, like, my sister did a human movement degree before me, and that sort of got me thinking about it. Then I met a guy who was in her course and started talking to him about the options and what you can do, and that got me really interested, so that I ended up doing the same course as her when I graduated, and took it a different stream though, and I went down the exercise science route, and yeah, really probably it was probably second year uni. It's actually interesting. I was watching your intro. It was good that I saw it just then, because I did an internship at VIS in second year. Spent about 9 months there, and Andrew Russell was was basically supervising me the whole time. And
how good!
So, yeah, he actually was a good friend of my sister's. They were in the same year, and so it was. That was probably what got me really interested. I loved that experience, and I ended up just going there and volunteering every Friday afternoon for another, I don't know, 6 months on top of the experience that I had. And yeah, that probably got me a job, I reckon, at the end of it. Because even though I did other things, but at uni and other experiences, but when I was finishing my honours, I applied just to a bunch of clubs to see what was around. And Loris Bertolacci, who was at Geelong, he picked up my resume, and because I'd worked with Andrew, and Andrew worked with Loris at Essendon, and it just went from there. And we both had an athletics background as well. So that just sort of worked well, and that got me in, I suppose. And yeah,
fantastic. There's that crew of generation of strength and conditioning coaches that were pretty pivotal in AFL athlete development, with John Quinn's been on, Loris, Andrew Russell, Joel Hocking, we had him recently as well, another athletics background, S&C.
Yeah.
So it seemed to be, and worked in AFL as well. So it seemed to be quite a popular trend in the sport.
Yeah.
Do you think it helped shape the way that the game is so much faster paced and higher pressure and the intensity of the game due to some of the coaches that were coming on?
Yeah, I think definitely. I mean, there's even who was it at Brisbane Lions at the time, was in a similar background as well, and it was coaching some, I think, Australian shot putter at the time. I can't remember his name, but yeah, like basically we used to talk a lot, and the influence of athletics was massive for me, and I found it helped it really helped shape my beliefs and teach me what athletes in the AFL could cope with, and the sort of training loads that were needed at that sort of level, and the intensities and things like that. And then other things in terms of injury prevention and running mechanics and bits like that. It really, I think it was massive. It's probably been in terms of my development, doing athletics and coaching athletics was huge.
Yeah, no doubt there'll be developing strength and conditioning coaches that are tuning in.
Yeah.
If they don't have a athletics background, would you recommend, where would you start? Would it be doing athletics yourself, even if you're an adult, or is it
Yep.
just
Yep.
coaching thrills? Or
That's what and I've done that with guys before. Like when I was at Geelong, there was a guy who came on board with us at the time, Chris Dennis, who just recently left Geelong, but he was there for a long time, really successful strength coach. But at the time, Loris probably steered it and pushed him towards doing some athletics, and he came down and just did some training with us and was coached by Loris. Had a lot of experience coaching athletics as well, and sprinters in general. So yeah, and that was one of the things he always pushed, is if you haven't done it yourself, just go and train with a group, like a group of track and field athletes or sprinters or pro runners even, and learn some of the techniques that they use, because it translates to a lot of the conditioning side of football really well.
Yeah, and it's so important to see it, isn't it, firsthand and experience it and feel it to be able to then teach it, I guess.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
And you mentioned that you said you did that internship at VIS, and did I hear correctly that you were putting in extra hours with shadowing Andrew Russell in the afternoons or something?
Yeah. So I basically just, I think, and I don't even know if it wasn't really a proper internship. It was just Andrew actually invited me down and said,
Was he Jack back then, or was it this is Andrew?
no, yeah, it was Jack.
These days. Yeah.
Well, we used to call him Russ. So I don't know.
Yeah.
Then he started getting Jack, and yeah, I don't know. But yeah, that was when he was dating my sister. So it was, I don't know.
Oh, right.
But
You weren't going on nickname basis.
He wasn't right then, but I think that he might have at some stage. Anyway, he'd probably hate me for saying that, but anyway. But yeah, no, he was awesome, and he helped me learn what to do with athletes at the time. It was really just letting me play a bit, and then feeding me information. This is what you should watch these videos, or give me research to look at, and just helping me sort of get confidence coaching athletes. And so at the time, he would just put me with take guys through their programs, and I was a second year uni guy, but it really helped just to take some Olympic kayakers or whatever they were through their programs, and just watch the way they train and see how elite they were. I think that really helped me too.
Yeah, and at the time when you take yourself back to that time in your life, what was your mindset like? Were you just in awe of these athletes and just excited to be there and just soaking it up as much as you can, or did you have intentions on, I want to work in elite sport and this is going to set me up?
I definitely wanted to work in elite sport, and pretty much from probably first year of uni, I knew that.
Yep.
And I was doing everything possible. Like I probably did about 1,000 hours worth of voluntary work at uni. Just every holidays, I was doing stuff, AIS internships, ACT Academy of Sport, everything. Just Ballarat, it was the Ballarat Miners basketball team, and all sorts of stuff like that. Just
right. Yeah.
And just sort of getting some of it, like I I don't know, didn't really enjoy. I was doing like physiology work and taking bloods and lactates and stuff like that. But it was good just to experience all different parts of what we can do in our course, and then that really helped steer me into what I liked, and I went from there. Yeah.
And that approach, did that come naturally to you, or did a mentor like Jack or someone else sort of recommend throw yourself out there and get as many opportunities as you can?
No one really recommended it to me. I don't think. I know some guys who were same year as my sister, some other guys and they were doing. I don't know. I don't know if it was them or not, but I ended up just doing it. I think I enjoyed it, and and I could see the benefit in what I was doing. It probably helped some of the lecturers and that I had at Ballarat. Like Warren Young was one of my main lecturers. He took me through my honours as well, and another guy, Michael Polton, was really influential on me. And those guys, I think at the time the course was you had to do 400 hours minimum anyway. I think over the course, and that really helped. I think it was a strong course at the time, and yeah.
Okay, and then so you went on to do your honours. What other things were you doing outside of your studying and your research? Were you working outside of the industry, or were you working within the industry, like personal training? How are you sort of making ends meet?
Yeah, I did a little bit on holiday periods, and that I did some combined work, which was experience, but I was getting paid for as well. Like I did some like holiday camp type things, and then I did a whole range of different things. I worked in pubs while I was at uni, just Friday, Saturday nights, and I did. From a training point of view, I did athletics, or I started doing pro running. I did normal track and field right up until I was probably 20 or probably 21 or so, and then I started doing pro running and running in GIFs and things like that. So I ran at Stall and a bunch of other running races, and so that was probably what I was playing. I played AFL as well. I played for North Ballarat in Ballarat, and I played a couple of games of VFL reserves, and but I wasn't good enough to go to the next level. I always sort of thought, well, I probably need to concentrate more on this side, and
how did you go? Like that's competing at a high level in two sports, and then doing all these hours. You mentioned you did nearly triple the hours that the placement was for the degree, 1,000 hours as opposed to 400. How did you go about managing that workload and I guess wearing the two hats of still having your goals and pursuits with the athletic side and footy, and but then also pursuing your career?
Yeah. The athletics side, I suppose, goals for that, I during uni, I probably didn't go too hard with it. There was periods where I did and didn't, and then after uni, when I was at Geelong, actually, I really had more of a crack with athletics, probably for 2 or 3 years there. Really tried to push myself, and with Loris coaching me at the time, it was a good time to do it. I had a goal. Like my dad was a really good sprinter and he'd ran 10.4 for the 100 before and held the record in Geelong for about 4. Still holds it, I think.
Right.
And I always
trying to knock him off.
Yeah, I wanted to try and knock him off, but I never got there. And then once I started working at North Melbourne, which was end of 2002, and I got the job there to run the program, and I had to give it up. I just had no time.
Right.
So that was probably just before that I was hitting my peak, and I was like, got
to pick one at the crossroads.
But,
do I beat my dad or need a full-time job?
I would have had to train 6 days a week to beat him, and I probably wouldn't have got there either anyway. So
that's impressive speed. So if we take it back there, were you doing your honours at Geelong, or how did you get the foot in the door with Loris at Geelong? I know you mentioned there was a connection with Andrew Russell, but
I didn't. I did my honours at Ballarat, but I was still finishing it when I got the job at Geelong. It was about September, October in '99. I think I started in Geelong, and it was a month or so to write up the rest of my honours, but it was pretty much done.
And was that a part-time role at Geelong?
First year it was part-time. It was meant to be part-time. It's about 20 hours a week, but Loris used to have me on the phone every night for about an hour, and he never stops talking, and we used to get caught up in lots of conversations all the time, which was great. And I loved working with him. He was a really good mentor for me, and probably influenced me more than anyone. So we definitely did. Yeah. And we got along well. And so, first year was part-time, and then I went full-time second year, and I was there for 3 in total before I went to North.
Okay. Yeah. And so the part-time role was were you helping out in the strength room mainly with the conditioning rehab? What was the
Everything.
Yeah.
Basically I assisted Loris to run the whole thing, and he oversee the whole lot, and then he'd write the programs, I think, in the first year, and I'd come into the gym and I'd supervise and help out guys in there, and then I'd on the field when training was on. Every training session I was there. And so and games as well. It was really, it was probably 30 plus hours in the end, but we were just it was fun, so he didn't really care. And he just get me to do all different parts of the program, so it was great. And I think that's what maybe is missing from some guys now. If you go into the AFL, you sort of have to come in a specialised role a lot of the time. The AFL's gone a bit that way, but back then it was like there wasn't as many of us. There's only me and him, and there was no other staff at all. I think there might have been a girl, Abby, who came in, did part-time sports science work and took skin folds and a few things. But we pretty much did the rest of it. And so you had to do everything. You'd supervise rehab. At the time, it was good because he'd pushed me I did like Pilates courses, clinical Pilates. I did a couple of different qualifications in that so that I could use it with guys in rehab. That's pretty much it. But it was just an all-round experience.
And for the strength and conditioning coaches that are tuned in, and you mentioned early on, like when you started your degree, you knew your vision, you knew what your purpose was to do the degree, was working elite sport. And then we're now, at the start of how you get your foot in the door, and you mentioned the athletics and how that helped, and a couple of key mentors. What if you were talking to yourself back then, is there anything you would have done differently, or you're pretty you would have done sort of the same formula?
At the time, no, I knew when I was at uni that I think I just took every opportunity that I could with work experience, because I thought that would really help me. And so I wouldn't, definitely. And I've told people since, like whenever I've come into contact with people trying to get in or finishing uni or at uni, I'm like, you got to go crazy, get as much experience as possible, because when you come out of it, that's what gets you a job. It's the degree itself. I don't know, everyone's got a degree, so how do you separate yourself? And for me, it was that experience plus having done athletics, I think.
And you mentioned the two strong influences, Andrew and Loris. Are there other guys that spring to mind that helped you along the way?
Yep. Let me think. I suppose at Geelong at the time, Mark Thompson was the coach, and he was a good coach. I definitely got along well with him, and I think he helped initially, probably just because there was times when I had to sort of run the program in my third year, I think, for a short period. Loris had some family things going on and had to take some time away from work. But they threw me in charge for I don't know, 4 or 5 weeks or something like that. And so I had to deal directly with Bomber and basically do what Loris did, and come into meetings and do all that. And that was a really great part that taught me a lot. And he was good even when I went to North Melbourne. He sort of helped me with getting that job and tell me what I should do. Bomber was good. And then after that, at North, I worked with a guy named Brenton Parsons, who was my assistant at the time, and we sort of had a great relationship, and I learned a lot off him. And even though, and we just sort of, from that point on, we sort of would chat and keep in contact a lot over the years. And Brenton was great. Who else? That's probably in the early years. They were There's another guy, Trevor Farr, who at the same time as well was at North. And the other thing at North Melbourne, I was really young at the time. Like I think I got the job at North too, and I think I was 24, just about to turn 25, and
And you're running the program.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember at the time, a couple of the players really stood up and helped me. One of them was David King. He used to say to me, like, if you need anything, just let me know, come and have a chat. And, some of the experienced veterans they had there, Anthony Stevens was also excellent. Glenn Archer, really good. So those guys in particular, I used to speak to quite a bit to help, because at the time, a lot of the guys I was coaching, they were older than me and had more experience in the AFL than I did, and so
they're super successful players, strong, big names, and it shows the good culture that would have been there for them to rather than making life easy for you, they got around you, which no doubt would have helped you do what you needed to do. How did you get that role? You mentioned Bomber helped you get the opportunity, but how did you get?
Lawrence recommended me, actually. Like they were, the end of 2002, they had a change of coach. I think Dennis Pagan left and Dean Lagley came in, and they were sort of setting up their program again. And they reached out, and I think they just recommended me. I had an interview, and went from there. Yeah, so did well in the interview, and just went, oh, here we go.
We'll give it a
crack. At the time, like that's probably that was I learned a lot in that role, and that was very challenging.
I can imagine. At 24, you're still working yourself out. Or I know I was anyway. Still at 31, but that's an incredible effort to run a program. Did you get to bring your own assistant in? Did you have to let someone go? Like, how was the initial?
There's no staff. Like I had a guy, Trevor, I mentioned before. He came in basically. I had no money to give people, so I think I gave him about $5,000 to help me, and he was awesome and just put in heaps of extra time. And Brenton as well, probably maybe he came on a little bit later, I think, maybe, and he wasn't paid much either. But they eventually were. But it was really a lot of volunteers. I had volunteer masseurs. We were training out of portables and a condemned grandstand. It was a real mix of all sorts of stuff going on there. Like there was actually it was that you had to be. It was good though, because it made me think laterally and just come up with solutions to not having equipment and just getting working around it, and which was good. We had to be creative, and I like that.
Yep. So, and it was how much did you adopt Andrew Russell's and Loris's philosophy, and how much did you bring? I guess if there was a 30-30 and then 30 your own, was it majority of your own philosophy that you always wanted to try, and now you had the opportunity to? Like, how did you go about the program?
I think from the different parts of it, I had different elements of each. Like from the conditioning, I definitely did a similar program initially to what we were doing at Geelong, although I really tried to push the speed aspect of training, or the conditioning towards high speed and resilience towards that was a really big focus of mine. There's one thing we started doing when we were at Geelong, but I probably just refined it a bit more and continued down that path a lot.
And what was your thinking there? Like, why did you want to focus on that? What was the selling point, I guess, to the players and the coaches that was important?
Well, one of the things was just the situation at North Melbourne at the time. Like they'd come off a background of a huge aerobic base, where their previous fitness guy had focused on real middle distance type conditioning, like probably 3 to 5K or 1K time trials up towards 5K repeats, and they started to get a lot of they had quite a few navicular stress fractures and other overuse type injuries as a result. So that I just had to do less volume for one thing, and I wanted to make them more efficient runners, and so running them over shorter distances, faster, and repeating that at intensity was a key to doing that, and also conditioning them to be able to prevent hamstring injuries at the time. And that was one of my key things, was always I wanted to have the best injury rate in the comp, and so I had a lot of things built into the program to help with that. I still had a focus on their aerobic ability as well, but I did a lot of it off legs, and boxing, swimming, bike, all those sort of stuff. I was doing a lot of that, even though it's probably not specific. And I maybe, now that I know things differently, I might not have done as much of that as I did, but it still worked, I think. And it had a place. And the strength side of things, I think I combined a bit of what Russ taught me and Loris, and then also threw in how I thought, I probably pushed the intensity of that a little bit more, and the load in there, because I wanted them. The time, I think there was a bit of a trend at the time too, with guys. The game at the time was nowhere near as aerobic. I don't think it is now. It was more of a we didn't have anywhere near as many rotations as there say there was in 2014. I know that's reduced now, but you could really work on guys' power and speed and strength probably a bit more. And the teams like Brisbane at the time were the best. Big strong players, and we wanted to be able to compete with them.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
And
how did you how did the players adopt that? I guess it sounded like it was a fair change in philosophy. Were they excited by it because they wanted some change, or were they a little bit stubborn against it?
Bit of both. I think they loved the strength training we did. They really got into that. They liked running fast, and they had to really hold the brakes on them quite a bit, because you'd tell them to run at 90%, they'd all run at 105% and be racing each other, and you're like, slow down. But then they wanted volume though, because they were so used to putting in lots of distance, they couldn't understand why we weren't doing as much running conditioning work as they were used to.
Mentally, they didn't feel like they were working hard.
No, but it took a while. They started to believe in it when they started to, later in January, February, the first year, I suppose, we were playing games, and they could notice their fitness more, and after that, and then during the season, as the years progressed, we got, I suppose, our injury results at the time were awesome for soft tissue injuries, and in general, we just managed to get hardly any. And a lot of that's probably a bit of luck, but I think a lot of it was the type of running we did and the amount of focus we had on technique as well as on speed, and not getting too much junk running into them, as a lot of people would call it.
Just like the garbage yardage, going out for 20 minutes steady state. What you mentioned the drills and that sort of thing. What, like, for developing footballers that are like, I want to get better with my running technique, there might be the combine coming up with their 20-meter sprint or their 2K time trial yo-yo. It's that time of year now. What sort of drills were maybe your top 3 drills that were specific to footballers that fixed common issues
for running technique? Specifically, the main drill I would do was tempo running. So, and I'd still do it now, where you get over probably 70 to 80 meters. I'd have guys run repeat efforts, and I'd set a time, that a flying 20 time, that I'd want them to sort of cover over that distance. So, and that'd be a consistent speed that they run at, and then I would just, as they're running, I'd give them cues to focus on for each rep, and try to do, there might be, I wouldn't give them too much at a time, but just slowly try and work on one thing maybe per session, and which with footballers a lot of the time was, if you, I don't know, bring your foot over your knee when you're on your drive phase of your non-stance leg, and because footballers just tend to overstride a lot and don't lift their knee and just plunge their foot forward, and don't have the ability to get their knee high enough to then land it underneath their center of gravity. And that's sort of one of the things probably the key thing I worked on was trying to focus on that, because I'd say 70% of guys that was their issue. And
cool. And while they're still doing some tempo running at the same time, it's not like you're slowing them right down. And
no, you don't do it in the warm up, and it'd be an extended warm up that might go for, like I used to do some, like leading into say a speed session, they might do a 45-minute warm up of slow, gradual stuff, a lot of activation drills, and then they might do 6 or 8 60-80 meter runs, and then where you work on those sort of things, and then you finish that and then go into the high intensity just speed work where I wouldn't be working on technique and they're just running fast.
Yeah, that's awesome that you got, and that was year one. You could get the coaches into allowing you to have that time with the athletes, like 45 minutes.
Yeah. I mean, it was. I remember having a lot of battles with coaches to not do that, but pre-season was different though, because you have a whole day really, and you might. We used to section it off so that the conditioning would either be before the skills component or after, and they'd have a break between.
Yep.
So you sort of had a time period anyway where I knew I could work within that, and it wasn't like I was warming them up for an in-season training session where you never could do that. And
okay, awesome. So you're running your program at North, and you mentioned you were there for, was it 3 seasons?
4.
4 years, and then what eventuated from there? Is that when you moved over to Adelaide?
No, I moved to London at the time, or Scotland. I left North Melbourne end of 2006, and went to, at the time, it didn't work out with at North, and in that last year we had to go back. It was probably, that was a really tough period for me. I think I learned a lot on how to deal with I don't know, just people in general, and then so I left North, got a job with Celtic in Glasgow.
Oh, sweet.
And that sort of came about because when I was at North in the last, I think 2005 or might have been 6, I can't remember, that the manager of Celtic, Gordon Strachan, he came and spent about a week with us at North and on a bit of a tour just to learn what people do. And I met him at the time. We got along well and showed him around. And then when I got overseas, the job came up there, and I managed to get an interview. And then one thing led to another. I mentioned, I knew Gordon and ended up meeting him the same day and got the job. And
wow.
that was a crazy experience.
What was the job?
Head fitness coach for their Celtic first team. And so, that was cool. That was probably some of the best game sort of live atmosphere I've ever seen.
I can imagine.
Actually, the training environment was different. Like it gave me, I had a lot of respect for AFL players after being there, because those they didn't train off the field anywhere near like an AFL player would. Like on field, they did train really hard and they had some awesome athletes, but it was like pulling teeth to get them into the gym. It was a nightmare. But it was just different, and it was a totally different culture, and it was good experience.
Yeah, and was that your first time working with soccer athletes?
Yes, it was. Yeah, I'd worked, not worked, but I'd still been, I'd been getting interested in soccer for probably 4 or 5 years prior to that, and really following European football quite a bit, but I hadn't worked in it. No. So.
And how did you go about? Because it does happen a fair bit with S&Cs, but especially when you're sort of at the pinnacle and you You've worked at the top. People seem to start to move around at that point. Like, how do you go about it? Do you speak to other S&Cs that are working with soccer clubs? Is it research? What's your main form of upskilling yourself to prepare for the role?
I didn't really know anyone else who'd worked in football at the time. It was it was pretty early on, and I knew a guy. One of the guys I actually worked with at Celtic, name's Alan McCall, who he's a researcher now and does a lot of research. I think he works at Barcelona and Arsenal, but at the time he'd been out in Australia previously for a year doing work experience at Brisbane Lions, I think, and we just got along well. And I used to talk to him quite a lot because he had more experience he grew up in Glasgow, but yeah, and just really, I used to just fall back on what I learned at uni, to be honest. And one of the key things I always used to know is that whatever sport I was in, it was really doing a needs analysis of the sport was the first thing I ever did, and just looking at what's involved, the movements involved, the energy systems being used, and yeah, I just watched the sport, and that probably helped me the most.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it makes a lot of sense. That was like, when you're one wood, or your strength as a coach is that athletics, you know how to teach how to run. It's still a running based sport, and
Yeah.
I imagine soccer, even more so than footy in some sense, is speed based.
It was pretty similar. Like the conditioning was not a huge amount different. A little bit more lateral work than AFL, probably more than anything. But yeah, it was pretty similar.
Yeah. And what was your team like? Did you have an assistant S&C or sports science?
Sports science, which was Alan. He was sports scientist at the time. We had that was us, and we had a doctor and 3 or 4 physios. One of the physios did rehab, and that was it. It was quite a early setup, I suppose, and even at the time, not many of the football clubs over there had big departments. I think at the time, it was the best that I knew of was Bolton Wanderers at the time. They had they probably were renowned for having the best sort of program and really good sports science operations. Fulham weren't too bad as well. There's an Aussie guy working at Fulham. I can't remember his name, but I ended up meeting him at some point. But yeah.
Was it closed doors, or is it a little bit like the AFL where people are open in a sense to share?
Yeah, pretty closed. Pretty closed, yeah. I mean, you didn't have much time, to be honest, as well, because you're playing 3 games a week, and you sort of like Saturday, you play a game on the weekend, then a midweek, then weekend, and there's travel involved and that as well. So it was difficult to get around to much more than just doing your job.
Yeah. Try and get some sleep.
Yeah.
And how long were you there for? Because it sounds like you were going for a bit of a holiday, and then this just was a shift towards the plan. You got a job.
I was there for a year, and then I ended up taking a job, which in hindsight wasn't a great move, but I took a job with not British Tennis, it's called Lawn Tennis Association, they called, but which is basically British tennis, which was a move back to London. And now I go back and I wish I'd stayed at Celtic, but at the time I was probably I had family in London at the time, and I was a bit homesick, and it was hard work in Glasgow, to be honest. Been up there on my own at the time, and so I moved back there, worked with tennis for a bit, and then after that, then I moved back home and got a job in Adelaide with South Australian Cricket. After that, and then went to the Crows and Port Adelaide. So
awesome, man!
It was good actually. I really enjoyed cricket. I worked for Saka for almost 2 years and loved it, and had still got some really good mates from that, guys who were players at the time, plus people I worked with, and I enjoyed that because it was just a different cricket was a different sort of environment. The players themselves were probably a bit older, most in general, and because it takes a while for the cricketers to get to that elite level, and so I got along well with those guys and living in Adelaide. It was good fun, and also just learnt learn another sport, learn how to deal with different injuries, different conditioning requirements. Cricket was good because there's some very different type of positions, like bowlers compared to batsmen, and what they need is very different.
Yeah, very specific to the position.
Yeah. Um,
and maybe the individualization because of the volume of players would be so different to the other sports you're working in.
Yeah, you had more time with the players when you did have it, except for when they were playing like a 4-day Shield game or something, and you sort of just sit there watching cricket for 4 days. But in between, like that was actually the rehab side of things. You probably had about, I think the list was 20, so it was a bit easier from that type of thing. You could spend a bit of time with the boys and get to know them really well. And there's a fair bit of travel. You play games all around Australia, but then we made the 2020 Champions League in South Africa, so we got to go over there and travel to South Africa and play Indian teams, and that was awesome.
And what would be your game day role? Are you warming them up like an AFL warm up?
Yeah, warm ups, and then during the game you would usually do, like, I used to use the game time if we were batting in a Shield game or something like that. Then you'd get the bowlers and take them to the gym and do some work with them. And it's usually just small sessions, but just topping them up and keeping them going. Or you do rehab, because there was always a few guys in rehab that you do during that period. But yeah, warm ups, you do drinks, you do a lot of hydration, because it was always in summer, so we were just always. I think you had hydrolyte sachets going around all over the place and just trying to. They were addicted to them, I think. Bit of sports science work as well, and load management side of things, because we didn't have. It was pretty much just me for most of the time. I had eventually got an assistant in there, but you sort of had to do a bit of everything. But yeah, that was even helping out in the skill side of things with guys at training and warming them up on the throwing balls at them and doing things like that.
Yeah. And then before we move to getting back into AFL, at this point in your career, what was your biggest challenge and what did you learn from it?
From working in cricket specifically, and
no, just in general.
My biggest challenge at the time, I think, before I started, it probably stemmed from I think North Melbourne at the time. When I left, I realized that I needed to improve communication skills more at the time, and be able to work and deal with, I suppose, coaches that, and just build better relationships with those sort of people. And even so, I worked on that really a lot, and especially in cricket was a really good opportunity for me to do that. And I felt like I just grew quite a lot over that period.
Is that specifically you just thought, okay, this is a skill, I've just got to practice the specific skill of working with coaches, or is it
not just coaches, but just in everyone involved? Because there's a lot of every football club or sports team, there's a lot of different personalities, and I just realized that that's a huge part of being a coach and running a department in a football or cricket team or whatever. You have to be good at that. And and I noticed from, I think someone like Russ is a perfect example. I think he was awesome at that, and probably it's probably one of the big reasons why he's done so well. And Darren Burgess, who I worked with at Port Adelaide, similar. Just a great communicator, and so I wanted to develop that side of my skill set.
And those guys that you mentioned that are sort of that's their strength, that Darren Burgess and Andrew Russell. What form of communication were they specifically stand out in? Is it informal meetings? Is it non-formal communication? Is it just all round? Was it being able to how they communicate to people below them, equal to them, above? Like, what was the biggest standout? Do you think that I guess separated from their communication? professionals to a
I think
regular.
I could probably Burjo was probably a good example. He was excellent, I think, at selling the program and making the players and believe, especially the players, I think, believe in what they were doing and that it was going to make them successful. And I think that was huge. When I worked with him, I really saw that side of what he did, and that was pretty good skill to have.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think it really getting that relationship with the players is the key. I think and I think that even more so than the coaches, probably, because the players basically, if they want something, they'll get it. They've got more power than just one coach. So yeah, you've got to respect them and build good relationships with players. I think is really important.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and for a young coach listening in, what are maybe three things, or it doesn't have to be three, two things that are really important for developing relationships with your athletes?
I suppose the way you talk to them, I think, is important. I think early on for me, I just listening to them and letting them use their experience and feel like they're valued and their opinions are important and their experiences and making it the training as individual as possible for each of them. I think was really, really important, and making them feel like that you care about them and like you're out there to help them and you'll do things for them. And you go over the top and go out of your way to make their life easier, really. And that's still, even now I'm still learning that, even in in my current job, is that you get rewarded, I think, no matter where you are, for putting in the extra time and more above of what you're actually just paid for. And I think you can get caught up just going, I'm not paid for that, I'm not going to bother with that and whatever. But you've really put the time into a little bit of extra work and it pays off.
Absolutely. Awesome, mate. Well,
Yeah.
we'll have a quick drink break and then we'll go
Right.
to we'll carry on with you're in Adelaide and you're back in the AFL.
Cool. Thanks, mate.
Hi, I'm Jack McLean, an AFL football strength and conditioning coach, and I want to introduce you to the Prepare Like a Pro Academy. Our academy is a subscription-based platform where you can sign up to be a part of our community. If you get to the end of each episode of the podcast and are hungry for more, this is for you. Designed for aspiring AFL athletes and staff, you'll receive heaps of bonus weekly content, learn who the guests are in advance, and submit questions. Access to our Facebook group with Jack and other Prepare Like a Pro coaches. You'll be able to receive merchandise, program discounts and freebies, and get free access to our live events, exercise technique database, and much more. This is a great way for you to support the podcast, and it helps me with production and releasing epic content for you guys each week. Your contribution goes a long way in making the Prepare Like a Pro community possible. For a small monthly fee, you'll have access to all of the special content released on our Academy forums. There's no lock-in and you can cancel absolutely anytime. Hi, I'm Jack McLean.
Sorry about that. Welcome back, guys. We're back in Adelaide now, mate. You're back in the AFL. You first went to cricket and then worked there for a few years, and now you went back to Adelaide Crows. What was the reason to get back into the AFL?
I suppose I was approached by Stephen Schwert from the Crows to come over and run the strength program at the Crows, and I always loved working in AFL, I suppose, and was probably it was very enticing for me to get back into it because I grew up playing the sport and just I don't know, I liked working in it, and I got an offer from the Crows and thought, I'm ready to do it again, and that was it.
And from that role where you're in Adelaide and then North Melbourne, Was there a big change in the football department, specifically with high performance and medical?
Yeah, big change. The Crows was a big team and big club in general. A lot more facilities to our disposal, like the great gym that we had, and there's a pool indoors. It was also, they pretty much had everything at the time. Compared to most clubs, you had your field, couple of training fields right in front of you where you trained, and next to the club. It was really easy for them. We had probably staff wise, not too many staff. We had I think 3 full time and in S&C. One guy was a part-time sports scientist / assistant. Actually 4 we had. So yeah, it was a sports scientist. We had myself, another guy, Matty Bode, who was in assistant strength conditioning, and then we also had 3 or 4 physios. We had chiropractors, and a lot of the sports medicine side of things was pretty big. And one of the physios did rehab, and then Schwerty had some consultants that would come in as well, like Charlie Walsh at the time would come in and run cycling programs, and Dean Benton used to come in, do a bit of speed work with the boys and stuff, and just so it was a bigger setup, definitely. Yeah. And then Neil sorry,
you were head strength and power coach, were you?
Yeah.
And how did you find that? Because it seemed like all the previous roles, you were the manager, the head HBM, and then going to sort of like the 2IC. Like, did you enjoy it, not having all the pressure on you, or how did you find that?
It was different. Yeah, I liked. I probably got to be a bit more hands-on with the players, and I got to really get stuck in, and I really enjoyed that part of it, because it was pretty much mainly me in the gym and writing their programs. I did a fair bit of speed with them as well, and I'd help with rehab and other things, but in the gym was my domain, and it was good. I enjoyed that part of it. Some parts where you're not running the program used to frustrate me because, you'd think, oh, why is this happening? And you might want to do it different ways. But that's probably because I had been in that role before. That probably, that's why I sort of have had some of those thoughts, I think, at the time. But, I still, I built great relationships with the players at the Crows at the time. And, it was still a good role. Definitely, it was good little intro back into AFL.
Yeah, and I guess you'd have empathy for the strength and power guy and the HBM. So, what do you think is the best way for a strength and power coach that hasn't been a high performance manager to respect those thoughts? Like, is it being honest and just saying this is how I would do things, take it or leave it? Is it just leaving it all together and not communicating? What's a healthy culture between them?
Yeah, keeping in communication all the time. And I think you can never do that and just say, look, this is the way I'm going to do it, and that's it. And that's really where you'll get kicked out straight away, pretty much in AFL. I think if that's the sort of attitude you have, and you've got to be able to work with people and understand. I think what it helps to, like, the high performance manager's role, there's a lot of things that they've got to consider. And a lot of different pressures than you would get as a strength coach. It's a lot. Being a strength coach is, it's, you can sort of be in your little area, and as long as they're, as long as you're not breaking someone in the gym, or it's you don't have the worries that you would as running the program, definitely. So it definitely helped me, or to have some understanding of what my boss at the time would have been considering, although his role was bigger than what my role would have been at North Melbourne, because he was sort of the sport had developed quite a bit. The departments were bigger, more staff underneath him, and he was also overseeing the medical area as well, which I wasn't doing that. So that was. I mean, you've always it's sort of interesting in AFL clubs, like the doctor and the head of performance. The high performance manager can sometimes be seen as being in charge of that, but then the doctor can overrule basically anything. So yeah, that's interesting. That I've seen a lot of issues in football clubs between medical staff and fitness departments, and when you're in a club and those two are working well together, it really helps. And I think it's a bad environment when they're not. And so it's a key thing to have, is that chemistry between those departments, I think.
Yeah. And do you think that just takes time of working together to build that cohesion, or is it personalities?
Yeah, a bit of both. Yeah, I think some people just won't get along with you, but yeah, you've got to be considerate of I suppose where everyone's coming from, and just be understanding and listen to people, and I think that's a skill I suppose you learn just from being involved for a while and not trying to be too pig-headed about just trying to get things done the way you want, because I think there's plenty of different, as I suppose Loris used to always tell me, and there's 100 different ways to skin a cat, and and when it comes to fitness, like there's always a way to get things done. Even you can make compromises all the time, and I think the more you do it, the more compromises you'll actually do, just because you understand that it'll still work, and the whole thing's not going to fall apart just because you change.
Yeah, it's a great message, mate. But, and then you shift to Port, to the rival side. How did that come?
That didn't go down too
well. I can imagine.
The guy who was running the program at Port, he actually, it's funny how this works, but he worked with Loris as well at Geelong, Cameron Falloon, and who was there when I got there, and he wanted to get me to come over, and sort of the role was a step up. It was, rather than just running the strength program, I was assisting the whole program as a senior assistant, and I was helping him to basically write the whole program, the conditioning side of things as well, and basically helping, being his right hand man. And so that was enticing for me to get back into a more senior role, and that was the reason why I went there. And we had a similar background of how we'd come up. We'd been mentored by Loris, and we thought that would work quite well at the time. But I think the first week I got there, I had an interview with the CEO, and he told me how the CEO of Adelaide at the time had made some comments about me leaving and going there, and wasn't too happy. But it's funny that they worry about the strength coach leaving, when and you really but it's Adelaide, it's a small
compliment,
town. Mate. It was. Port Adelaide was I really enjoyed Port Adelaide. It was a good club. It was more of a traditional football club compared to Adelaide. Adelaide was probably like a big business, more so than your old style football club with a huge history behind it, which Port was, which, you had your 60, 70-year-old trainers that have been there for 30, 40 years, that had, been with the Magpies, and they come up, and I think they had all that, their heritage of flags in the past, and that, it made it just had a different feeling about it, I suppose.
That footy club feel, like you said.
And Port was an interesting experience, because the coach got sacked halfway through the first year when I was there. Matt Primus was the coach, and I think we lost to Gold Coast Suns. It was their first win ever, I think, and he got sacked that night, and then my boss got sacked not long after that, and it was just the last part of that year was tough.
How were you feeling at the time? Because you only just came to.
I was like, this is I didn't know what was going to happen, because they basically brought in a whole new coach, new high performance manager, Darren Burgess, who came in, and
Liverpool, was he?
He came straight back from Liverpool at the time. So that was. I didn't know where we were going to be until that year started, really. So there's a few months of not really knowing. That all worked out in the end, and most of the people who were there stayed. A few new people came in, but we got along. I got along well with Burjo, and Ken Hinkley was coach. He was a great coach. Thought he was a very impressive coach, and I hope they do well this weekend. I don't know. It's weird. I grew up barracking for Geelong, and I lived in Geelong as a kid, and then when you go and work for another club, sorry to change the issue, the subject a bit, but then you leave and you come back, and now it took me a while when I left AFL to actually start feeling passionate about supporting Geelong.
Yeah, right. Emotionally, so
yeah, I was from North Melbourne when I was working there, and then the Crows, and then Port, and then I still now hope that Port Adelaide do well. And yeah, it's weird.
Yeah, it makes sense. You pour so much of your everything into it.
Yeah, and you still got guys there that I know, and I hope they do well. So yeah.
Yeah, fantastic, mate. And that time that you mentioned, where there's a new head coach, new high performance manager, for someone listening that maybe hasn't been through that, but they may go through it at some point. Like, how did you cope with that? Did you start looking for other jobs? Did you just focus on internally within Port Adelaide? Like, how do you approach the situation?
Definitely a bit of both. I didn't actually. I don't think I ever applied for any jobs or anything at the time. I was contracted still at Port, and I remember speaking with Burjo a few times. We just tried to put together a program for the boys to do prior to him getting there, and I can't remember the actual time that he got there at the start of pre-season, but there was a period when there was no one there, and so it was myself, Stewie Graham, and another guy, Andrew Rondinelli, I think, and we just got together and tried to put together something that would work for the boys. That was challenging. I remember having interviews, meetings with the CEO and different people, and it was a tough period, definitely. Yeah, everyone was wondering if they were going to get the sack or
I can imagine.
going to go on.
Well, you fire the two arguably most important, or up there in terms of staff anyway, leaders. Everyone else will be freaking out. Fair enough.
Yeah, and then my role changed when Burjo came in. I ended up being head of rehab after that, and which
How
I
did that
didn't.
come about?
Well, we didn't really. We sort of had a bit of a mix of people doing rehab, and needed to probably just take more control. Have someone being responsible for it, I think. And I'd always done a lot of rehab and had a good experience with it in the past, so I was quite keen to do it and confident doing that. So I'd already done some of the rehab. I'd been doing. I think at the time Robbie Gray did his ACL, and I'd been doing his rehab, and just sort of worked just to follow on, really. Also didn't mind, like, the role I had. I think probably with Burjo coming in, he had his own theories on how he wanted to condition guys, and it probably just made sense for me to do that, to be honest. And
And at what point did, with all this, the GPS come in, and how did that as a practitioner, did you change much of your philosophy? What sort of insights did you find from it? What were some things that early days were done that ended up becoming rubbish? And
GPS, I first started using it, I think it was 2003. I was at North Melbourne. We remember a guy from GP Sports, Adrian Faccioni, sort of bring them down to the club and gave us a couple of units to play around with. And it took, the first few years, we really didn't know what we're doing with them. We were just getting total distance, and we didn't really know the metrics that we needed to look for. And I probably didn't invest much time in it at the time. I was now then, as the years went on, when I got to Adelaide, I really started using them more, and I worked quite closely with the sports scientists there to start to look at our high speed numbers and sprint distance, and come up with some management systems there to get more out of the boys and to start to prevent injuries, because I thought that there was a really good way that we could use GPS to help with soft tissue injuries.
Mm-hmm.
And then so when I was at Port, and then I started working closely with Stewie Graham, who was head of sports science, and we started really focusing on the sprint distance side of metrics and all of that, sprint distance and max velocity and or peak velocity that the boys would reach. And we came up with our own system or model that we used to manage. We called it a hamstring zone 6 injury prevention model or something. I don't know, something like that. But it was pretty good. It was really using GPS to quantify what I think. I'd had a system that I'd use even from when I was at North, and where I used to condition guys to run at high speed or sprint distance over pre-season, and then maintain that throughout the year. And so, and GPS, we could see that as a way to really refine that and get the numbers exactly right for each person individually, and to know what they all needed individually to be able to maintain that and manage it throughout a season. And that was critical in that side of things. And then hamstring was probably the start of it. It ended up leading towards having an effect on the overall conditioning of training, and because we started to see trends with the amount of zone 6 sprint distance guys would do in a game, and their performance. So it would correlate really highly with wins. And then training drills used to be, the coaches started to catch on to this too, and they'd know what metrics to look for in each drill, and which drills were better at eliciting those sort of responses from the boys, which were more. They ended up being the drills that were more game-like, and the ones that were going to impact their performance the most. And so it was a good, at the time, the way the game was played too, there was 150 rotations a game at one point. Like, it was we were averaging. It was probably an average of 145 per game, I think, in that year. It was just on off constantly, and that was on game day. That was one of my roles. Sometimes was managing rotations, and it was just your head was spinning. I don't know how the players could handle it sometimes. But
would you have one guy looking after each line when it's that volume, or was your role look after all rotations?
We basically had a plan at the start of the game, and we knew this is this play at the 3-minute mark. These guys are going to come off. Then these guys,
players know that for each quarter.
Players would know at the start of the quarter, and then once it started, then it was just based on their GPS, because they'd have red flags that had come up on their live GPS when they hit a certain threshold.
Specific to their game average, or
specific to what they what we knew that they could handle, I suppose, from past games. It'd be what their total amount of I think it was meters per minute over a certain period, and once they got to that, we knew that they need to be rotated, because they wouldn't be able to maintain that intensity any longer.
You're at risk. Yeah.
So usually, depending on the players, the midfielders could handle it more, but there might be every 7 to 8 minutes we'd be rotating guys on and off the bench, just trying to keep them fresh. Yeah,
awesome. And it worked for injury prevention, but then, like you mentioned, the performance side of things, so the coaches started getting involved. What about the players? Did they start to?
Yeah, they definitely, they'd go on, because every training session, we'd post their results, so they could see. And even in training, then they once we had it live, they would come over and check where they're at, and especially because the guys who were coming back from injury, it was really important, because they'd have targets that we would aim for them to hit during a session, and so we'd be constantly checking them throughout the session. And most of the time, we try and get it just through football, and it was just any additional work at the end of the session. If they hadn't hit those targets, we would top them up.
At the time, you and Stuart Graham, you guys created this model. Was another sport doing it in the off season that you researched and you heard about it, and then you made it your own and made it AFL specific? Was another AFL club doing it? Was there a really high hammy history of injury? Like, what was the motive to try this out?
The hamstring injuries it's always the number one injury in AFL. So it's something that we just wanted to be the best at, I think. And I knew that from my experience that running high speed, running at sprint distance repetitively, and particularly running above probably 95% of your max velocity was where most of the benefits were made. But I'd had history. I'd used it before in the past, and I didn't think the reason I wanted to do this is because it was hard to control what players did, or you didn't quite know exactly where they were at without GPS. You're pretty much just guessing a bit. And we wanted to make sure we weren't doing that. And then that enabled us to, once we had that data, then I could go to Burjo and he would then believe in it and trust it, because prior to that, it's risky for him to go, we're going to run flat out sprints at the end of a training mid-season. And but once he knew the data was supporting it, and the proof was in the pudding, really, and we could do it and safely push guys that fast consistently all the way through the year.
And so were they getting exposure to above 95% and then wind them down, or was it actually holding 95% for a period of meters?
It depended on where they were at. We had two. We were looking at basically two different metrics. So we'd have a volume metric where we look at for amount total distance above. We had, I think it was 7.1 meters per second. I think it was their zone 6. So anything, they had a distance each week they need to get for their zone 6, and then if they didn't get that, that was one category that we would top them up with. Like we'd know, we used to have like a 4-week rolling average, and we'd know when they were starting to, sometimes they'd be getting too much. We'd have to back them off and take them out of drills and that, because otherwise they would get injured. And then otherwise we'd have to just add a little bit of volume. It might be 50 meters or 100 meters, and usually they get it in a session just through training in drills.
Yep. And were they told at the start you're behind a little bit, like get this out, and they get intent?
Yeah, try and get it in your training. Then at the end, if it didn't happen, we just do 1 or 2 50-meter sprints or flying 20s at a time, and I'd give them a time to hit. Like it might be their flying 20 section. I'd time them and say, look, I want you to cover this in. I knew what their max would be, and I'd be like, you say their max was, 2.4 seconds for 20 meters. I'd tell them to go at about 2.6 or 2.7, which I really knew what those times meant in terms of speed. You could tell exactly that'd be 8 meters a second if they ran it. I think it was 2.69 or 2.7 was 8 meters a second. You go, okay, just do 2 after that. If you do 2 of them, it's going to equal about 50 meters. And you're watching it live as well, so you get that feedback anyway. But then we had the max velocity they had to hit. We wanted them to hit 95% of their peak velocity at least once a month. They had to do that, and above 90% once a week. Twice a month for 95 and once a week for above 90%. So that was probably the one. That was the tougher one to sometimes get, especially with guys who had histories of hamstrings. But and coming back from rehab, it was critical. We'd monitor that all the way through, and they'd set targets every session to hitting their zone 6 targets basically, and their max speed as they go. And that was it. Once you did it, it worked so well. It was great. You could really trust it. Yeah,
that's awesome. Thanks so much for sharing that. We'll
go
into the lighter side now of the podcast. This is a bit of a get to know you, Jarrod. So it's fun for the Patreon members. Which movie or TV series impacted you the most, and why? And this doesn't have to be anything to do with S&T.
Oh, movie. Probably like something like Rambo.
Yeah, cool.
Remember the Sylvester Stallone movies like Rambo and Rocky and stuff back in the day? I used to
feel good movie.
Yeah.
Yep, love it. Favorite inspirational quote or life motto?
You've got me there.
It doesn't have to be bang on with the quote, but it can be just
a
philosophy of.
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I can't think. Sorry.
It's been a long one, mate.
Come back to it. Pass. Come back. Yeah.
This one's an easy one. Well, it's not easy, but in your work life, what makes you angry? What are your pet peeves?
My pet peeves. Oh, I hate it when things get done in a way that's dangerous, I suppose. And if someone's going to get injured or whatever, I have got angry before at that, and probably overreacted a couple of times from that.
Awesome.
Because I think having when you've been running a program before and injuries are sort of like always in your head, I don't want to get them.
Yep.
Yeah, that was probably.
And you want to try and prevent it as much as you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, makes sense. What's your favourite way to spend your day off? COVID-free world, of course.
I love playing golf and I love surfing. They're probably playing golf. Probably recently has probably been pretty good, pretty relaxing. Yeah, and spending time with the family. Now I've got 2 young kids, so at least hanging out with them. Although now you can't really do much apart from hanging out at home. But yeah.
Hopefully it gets better for us. And favourite holiday destination and why?
Where was it? Noosa, I love going there. If you're talking about Australia, we got married up there, and just it's always a great spot to go. And outside of that, I reckon the Maldives. Went to the Maldives for honeymoon, and that was awesome. Yeah, really good.
That's a good combination.
The Maldives is outstanding. Like I want to go there again.
As good as the photos and the videos you see.
Oh yeah, it's just it's ridiculous. It's really clean as well, and like it's just beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah, awesome, mate. Well, thanks so much for jumping on and sharing your experiences and stories amongst what worked for you, your learnings and everything. I really appreciate the honesty, mate, and the time as well. It's been nearly 2 hours, so jumping on.
Editing. Yeah, cheers, mate.
Luckily that's not my role, but what are you excited for 2021? What are some big things happening with Sydney or grammar school or with the family? What are you thinking?
Yeah, I think looking forward to hopefully getting back to sport at some stage. It looks like this year's a write-off at the moment. We just so hopefully start of next year we're back into doing some competitive sport, which would be good. Gives you a bit more excitement at work and something to train people for, which is always helpful. Personally, I don't know. I'm enjoying living in Sydney at the moment. We live near the beach up here, so even though it's lockdown, it's probably the best place to be. Like we can walk to the beach and lifestyle's good at the moment. I'm glad I'm still employed. I know that a lot of people aren't, especially in sport. So it's probably privileged just to. I feel a bit lucky that I am, and that's probably the good thing about working in a school now. I got in at the right time.
Absolutely.
But I'm sure sport will come back soon, and actually looking forward to the AFL finals the next couple of days. Next couple of weeks should be interesting.
Yeah. It should be 2 massive games, hey?
I hope.
Who you tipping?
Well, it could be. I think Port will definitely win. They looked awesome in their last game, I think. Although the Bulldogs will be tough. And Geelong, Melbourne, I don't know. That could go either way, I think. I think Geelong need. Yeah, I reckon if Geelong could get Tom Stewart back, although it made a difference with Tui back last week. He made a big difference to them, but they need to fix their last quarters.
If it's Geelong Port, Who are you tipping? Who's
Yeah.
your Hartford
I'm
Geelong still? Or?
I'm happy either way.
You can't lose. Good place
Yeah,
to be.
Geelong lost last year, so I sort of hope they win. But yeah, who knows? Yeah.
I will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate.
What might win though? I feel like they might have just got everything right at the right time.
Yeah, players are back. They're fit and firing, and
Yeah.
they play the right brand, don't they?
Yeah, and they're going to be in Adelaide this week, so probably a fair chance they'll win that. And yeah. Anyway, yeah.
Awesome, mate.
Yeah,
Appreciate you jumping on.
No worries, mate. I appreciate it. Thanks for inviting me. To be honest, no, it's good. It's good to have a chat about all that, and enjoy thinking about what all those experiences. Yeah, helps.
Yeah,
it's good to reflect.
Good to reminisce, and especially talk to someone like yourself that's worked across so many different sports and the different travel components that happen with it, but also, like you said, thinking back to what the degree teaches you, the demands of the sport, and having an approach on how to go about it, and how the sport's grown as well, the industry with departments and all that sort of thing.
Yeah, it's funny how that is. I think working across everyone, a lot of people used to ask me, "Oh, was it hard going from into a different sport?" But yeah, I never really felt like it was. It was always just stick to the fundamentals and principles, and you're right, pretty much.
Yeah, it's the same. Humans are humans, and
yeah,
athletic.
Exactly. Yeah,
for sure.
I think but having that really, I don't know, I can't stress enough how important it was to have an athletics background or understand that side of training. Just made a big difference. It still does. I'm enjoying actually getting to coach athletics now. It's good little change up.
Yeah, you're heading up the program there, so it's not just the physical component, but you're your coach. So
John Quinn's been assisting me, which is funny.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he actually got me the job, but he didn't have time to do any more work. But he's one of our athletics coaches here, and Quinny's great. So it's fun having him around.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
Yeah,
he's back now, isn't he? He's done his quarantine, done his time, and he's.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I don't know if he's in Melbourne or he's back in Sydney. He's probably back in Sydney because he's working. He's got a few. He's got a business in Melbourne, so I don't know how he's going to manage that back and forth. But he's a busy man. He does a lot of stuff at the moment.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Awesome, mate. I'll leave you to it. But thanks again, and we'll speak soon.
No worries. Thanks, mate. See you, Jack.
Cheers, Jack.
Ciao.
Thanks for tuning in, guys. If you missed the start of that chat, make sure to watch the very beginning. We discussed Jarrod's career from his passion in the industry and in athletics and how that got him all the way through to working in numerous AFL clubs, cricket, high performance, tennis, Celtics. So it was a great chat around S&Cs, but also some practical tips for athletes. So make sure to tune in. The podcast will be live in 8 weeks or so time. We'll launch that podcast and we'll post on our socials when we do. But for the time being, it's now living on our YouTube channel, so you can go back and watch that chat if you missed the live segment. Our next chat will be this Thursday at 8 p.m. with Michael Riscatelli, the Brisbane Lions and Suns player. So if you want to tune in for that one, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Thanks for tuning in, guys.